Welcome to this episode of On the Sidelines. John Luck, Brad McKinnon, Jonathan Rodriguez, Zach Sylvia. I'd be a lot happier if the Celtics were in the conference finals, didn't have their superstar sidelines. But I guess we'll have a little group therapy session here today. That's why we have a full house, right?
Yes.
We're gonna try and improve spirits.
Yeah, he thinks it's group therapy, but this is the guy who always got harassed for being a Bruins fan. So
yeah. You know what they say about karma there, Don Sweeney. Anyways, here's what's leading off, and that is the Boston Celtics. They are now in off-season mode, perhaps their most important off-season in a long time, as they fall to the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference semifinals, 4-2. We'll talk about all the injuries and the KP situation coming up in a little bit, but just kind of from a 500 mile in the sky view here, what are some of your takeaways? We'll start off with Zach. About this series, because this was a maddening series, even despite the Tatum injury.
Honestly, the most maddening thing about it was their inability to make shots, like in important scenarios. I mean, we look at Game 2, they went almost 8.5 minutes without making a single shot in the game. They lost the game by 1. You make even a single shot, you win that game. It's just frustrating, and they're not able to step up in the big moments.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I think you live and die by the 3, and they've kind of proven that. They would rather take the 3 than an easy shot, and you kind of saw it all series long. And when they shot good, they won those games, and then when they didn't shoot good, they lost those games. And I mean, it just didn't seem like there was a whole lot of just vigor in how they played, or just like kind of heart. The entire time it was very much seemed like hero ball, which when you have 5 people that like are supposed to be on a team like that, it should be more of like a team dynamic, like what the Warriors used to be, and that it just didn't prove that this series at all. And then when Tatum went down, it kind of just put a big sting on the team, and then you hear before the round even starts about the team blowing up. So there was a lot of like negative publicity even going into the series. So kind of it felt like something weird was going to happen this series, where the Celtics weren't going to like live up to what they were like supposed to do and things of that nature. So I think it was very, very, very telling, the first 2 games where they should have won. And after that, you kind of like leave yourself no room for error. Like you have to be kind of perfect. And it showed that they weren't perfect the next few games after that, and it happened.
Yeah, it happened.
It did happen. I mean, I agree with Zach, especially with Game 2. I mean, when you made, I think it was 15 shots in a row, that's crazy. You can't do that. And when you're just trying to, like you say, you live by the 3, die by the 3, you got to have at least Al Horford or someone underneath the net trying to get rebounds instead of taking his threes that I still think he's trying to cancel out a shot every time he's taking one. But it was upsetting to see the Celtics go down to the Knicks, because it's a Boston-New York rivalry, no matter how long it's been since they played in the playoffs and all that. But the first 2 games really set the precedent of, hey guys, we got to figure something else out, because the 3s aren't working. And yeah, in 3 and 4, the 3s did work a little bit better for sure. But like I said, you're not even trying to get offensive rebounds. And I mean, you have Cat, all the other tall 6'6" dudes on the Knicks. At least 1 or 2 of them are underneath the net whenever they shoot. They're reinforcing the 3-point shooters, trying to get offensive rebounds, and they got plenty of offensive rebounds in all those games. And I mean, you gotta show all effort on the court. You can't just all be riding the U, whatever the arch, whatever that line's called. You know.
So I was at the TD Garden a couple weeks ago. Didn't think I would need it, but I got my little Boston Celtics stress ball.
I'm surprised it hasn't deflated yet.
Nope, it may during this. So to me, the biggest issue is coaching. And this goes back to the Celtics, even back to the later days of Brad Stevens, where you mentioned it, live by the 3, die by the 3. That's one thing. But when you look at the Celtics team, what was really the number one thing a lot of people said about this team coming into this season? They'll win a championship if they're healthy, which obviously things went sideways, but also their depth. You mentioned the fact they were getting schooled on the boards on the offensive rebounds for the Knicks. You had Luke Cornett, who's no prize, although he did play pretty well in this Knicks series. You had Kristaps Porzingis, who had the post-viral symptoms, which, you can't blame him for that. And Al Horford. Horford and Porzingis were cooked. You had Cornett under there. He had the one great game of his career in Game 5. Why didn't Joe Mazzulla go to that depth and put Neemias Queta in there in Game 6? You're getting absolutely shellacked on the glass by Mitchell Robinson, Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns. Hell, Josh Hart even made you look like a punk inside the paint. You're telling me Joe Mazzulla is trusted with coaching this team? All I can think of is his coaching staff telling him, Joe, we're down by 15 in the first. Let's go to our post-conscious state here. Shoot more threes. Joe, we're down by 30. Shoot more threes. That's all this coach is. Shoot threes. After timeout plays. What's his big after timeout play? You have some off-ball screen to get to the top with Derek White, who shoots a 3. And 9 times out of 10 in this postseason, they haven't hit a 3. So the fact that Joe Mazzulla couldn't adapt to the situation and, take the ball inside, that's one issue, the 3-point play. And how about in Game 2, the second 20-point lead that the coach kind of screwed away thanks to Tom Thibodeau being a better coach? The fact that Joe Mazzulla continued to hack a Mitch and get the Knicks to the line in the bonus with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Tom Thibodeau had OG Anunoby ready to check in and take Mitchell Robinson out, except for the fact Joe Mazzulla decided to look like an idiot and continued to hack a Mitch. OG could sit, rest up a little more, and the Knicks could shoot free throws the entire fourth quarter, which that's what Jalen Brunson thrives at for the New York Knicks. So Joe Mazzulla looked like a Division III mascot coach, so I'm sure Tom Thibodeau felt at home here in Boston schooling Massachusetts coaches. Squeeze my therapy, Paul. So the Celtics, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank this season? Because to me, despite the fact the wheels fell off at the end, literally, I'd still say the Celtics team, the players, not the jackass coach, but the players deserve, I would say, a 7 or an 8. Because of the surrounding pieces you had. Peyton Pritchard really stepped up in the regular season. Sam Hauser stepped up in the regular season. You could see that depth really show, including Baylor Shireman. So to me, as calamitous as this series was, Brad, I think you have to give this team a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as, how the season was in a nutshell.
Like you just said, when it comes to the season in full, including the playoffs, 6-man award with Pritchard, and we had a great season, second seed. You got to be around a 6 to an 8, in that range, 100%. You can't give them a 10. We didn't even get the first seed, when it comes to the East. But it wasn't a complete failure until we ran into the Knicks, in the first 2 games, kind of shook us up. The last play of both those games, we just got defensively stomped. They made.
Why did we get defensively stomped? Oh, the coach screwed up anyways. So.
But it wasn't the worst season. We've had worse, and we're definitely going to see a different picture when it comes to this team next year, in my opinion. We'll probably, I believe, we're going to be talking about that too. So I'll just wrap it up there before I get into off the topic.
Good foreshadowing. I like it.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I would say I would give them a 6. Coaching was definitely, obviously, like you said, an issue, just adjustments and things of that nature. You got to be better in those situations, especially if you're a championship coach. And then I feel like besides Pritchard, everyone else did what they were supposed to do during the regular season. And I was expecting Tatum to kind of take over a little bit more this season, like kind of establish himself as like that guy. And it just felt like a regular Tatum season, in my opinion. And so I would give him a 6. You had Pritchard with the 6-man, like you said, and they did what they had to do first round, and they still kept it like 6 games. Even 1 game without Tatum still proves that, we still have some people on this team that can win us a game. So my biggest thing would be giving them a 6 for this season. We didn't do what we needed to do, but, like you said, next season's going to be a totally different team, I think. And Brown is really going to have to show, why he's got paid that much, and on top of it, why he's going to be, let's see why you're that guy.
I honestly give him a 7. I mean, have winning 60 games, that's no small feat. You're one of 3 teams in the entire league to win 60 games. But honestly, one thing that I noticed this year compared to last year was this team's health. They couldn't stay healthy, especially in the long run. We saw a lot more injuries this year than we did last year when it was all the other teams getting hurt, and then this time it was us. So it's just like Porzingis was out at the beginning of the year, and then he had that respiratory thing all year. So he was never that same guy. He had Drew Holiday out for a while, and then obviously as soon as Tatum went down, you could just feel the energy just completely deplete.
Yeah, you mentioned Jayson Tatum. Of course, the big story out of the series was the fact that in Game 4, in the last 4 or 5 minutes, as Jalen Brunson and Jayson Tatum were going back and forth at Madison Square Garden, Jayson Tatum unfortunately tearing his Achilles tendon, and he's going to be out for a long time. A lot of people are saying between 7 and 10 months. We'll get to kind of the scope of Achilles injuries and how long different people were out. But to me, this was truly a franchise-altering injury. You kind of forgot there was a series going on when this happened, because you get to Game 5, it's like, oh yeah, the Celtics are down 3-1. They have to come back. But we don't really care about that as much as Jayson Tatum. I went through his stats here, and you go back to 2017, he's played 80 games, 79 games, 66, 64. Those 2 seasons were the pandemic-shortened seasons. But 76, 74, 74, and 72 regular season games. He's only missed 3 postseason games all this year. Game 2 against Orlando, and then, of course, 2 games to end the Knicks series due to the Achilles injury. But the one saving grace, I think, and the one interesting thing in all of this is the fact that the Celtics were able to get a doctor in to fix the Achilles injury. And I think it was within 12 hours, you go from being on the floor, going in circles on Madison Square Garden because you just tore your Achilles, to the thing's surgically repaired. And there's still a lot of rehab to go through, but the road to recovery already started, and Jayson Tatum didn't even have to leave New York City, John.
Yeah, it's I was like listening to this report from Brad Stevens yesterday, saying how like influential it is that the surgery get done as quickly as possible for like blood flow and other aspects of like rehab. So I heard it was a good thing that the surgery did get done as quickly as possible, and then it does put him on a almost like 6 to 10 month timeline. Yeah. But I mean, at that point, what do you do with the season for next season? Like, it's, if we have Brown and then obviously a different team around him, do we want to bring him back? Do we want to rush him back? What if we're in like the hunt? Do we let him like come back in the postseason when it is a little bit more like tougher defenses and things of that nature? So it'll be interesting on what their approach is for next season and how they want to handle him coming back, and if we are even in the hunt, like what we do on that aspect of things. So
is there maybe like a line of demarcation? You guys can answer this too when you give your answers, but is there a line of demarcation? Because to me, I think for the Celtics to go for it at the trade deadline, or maybe even have Jayson Tatum really ramp things up to rush back in March or in April if he does play, I mean, I think the Celtics have to probably be a top 3 seed in the East for Brad Stevens to even consider going all in and having Jayson Tatum rush back. Because like you said, the defenses really ramp up, and you could see that in the Orlando series. But also, you can't full-blown tank, because with Jaylen Brown at the helm of this basketball team, you're not going to dip down with Utah or Philadelphia, Charlotte, Washington. You're not going to be that bad. With Jaylen Brown, I think if you take most of this team as constructed with Jaylen Brown leading the way, I could see this team being a number 5 or a number 6 team in the East. I don't know about you.
Yeah. I felt that same exact way. I thought they were going to be in that like 4 to 7 range, that he can like kind of like hold them afloat and things of that nature, because they still have a great team. Even if you take off like a Drew Holiday or KP, I still think like Derek White and him can like hold it down with like very like significant like good pieces around them, whoever we do bring. So it'll be interesting to see their approach on how they handle it, because again, I don't think they'll tank, but do they bring him back? And then, but I think it very much depends on like how out of this world Jaylen Brown and Derek White play. More Jaylen Brown, obviously.
Zach?
I do think one thing, obviously I don't know if you guys heard about this, but Jaylen Brown played most of that Knicks series with a torn meniscus in his left knee. So even going to next season, we don't even know if he'll be starting the season off. We'll be without our 2 superstars. So I definitely think there's going to be a dip in production there. And you said at the 4 to 7 range, it's a possibility. I don't think we're going to be one of the top teams in the East next year because we don't know the health of this team.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely should be a playoff team, like John said, even if we get rid of KP and Drew Holiday, just with the few pieces we do have. And I mean, Jaylen Brown should, as long as his knee's okay, should be able to say, hey, look, I'm worth all this money you guys gave me, and I can carry you guys to at least a middle playoff position. Definitely not a top 3 for the boys next year without Tatum, but it should still be a playoff team. And I mean, if we're getting rid of JP and Drew, like they always said, you're probably going to bring a decent player back in, you know, or you're going to trade those 2 for another player. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, there's hope for the Celtics after next year for a while, still, no matter what. You know, they can have one bad year.
Right, and that's what makes this really interesting about how Brad Stevens approaches this, because you can't really go full-blown, blow this thing down to the studs, because Jayson Tatum's going to come back in maybe March or April of next season, or I think 2 seasons. But, you know, you want to also have Tatum come back to a very good team and also a new ownership coming in. This is going to be a really interesting offseason. We'll talk more about what this team could look like coming up in overtime. But just to kind of give you an idea of different players that had Achilles injuries, of course, you have Kevin Durant suffered his injury in June of 2019, the NBA Finals. He missed 552 days, came back in December of 2020. Now, with that's not as daunting as it sounds, but with that, Durant also had to deal with the whole pandemic era stuff, so, you know, he didn't want to, or the season was already shortened anyways, and you had everything going weird there. So 552, maybe the supermax there in terms of a recovery time. But Kobe Bryant, we talked about before the show, kind of the weird similarities that when the Achilles tore in the game, with about 3:08 to go. But Kobe tore his Achilles on April 12, 2013, returned on December 8th. Unfortunately, he suffered a knee injury just 6 games later and missed the rest of that season. Another notable player, Klay Thompson of the then Warriors, suffering his injury in 2019. He missed the 2019-20 season. He also tore his ACL, so he missed almost close to 1,000 days thanks to those compounding injuries. And then Dominique Wilkins, kind of a blast from the past there, missing 10 months of his career due to an Achilles injury. So if I'm the Celtics, I kind of look at where you are in the standings, and if you're close, maybe you bring him back in March or April. But to me, I think for a player like Jayson Tatum, just give him the whole next season to kind of get himself physically and mentally ready, because I haven't injured my leg. I don't know if you guys have, but as an athlete, I'd imagine there's some mental things going on there. What happens if I take an off-balance shot?
100%.
So we'll talk a little more about the Celtics coming up in overtime. But coming up next, we talked about my dumpster fire. We get to talk about somebody else's dumpster fire coming up. The Boston Bruins extending Don Sweeney for another 2 years, and that calamitous end-of-season press conference. You want to borrow the stretch ball?
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Welcome back. As you can see from the center of our screen there, Sweeney's staying. Another 2 years of Don Sweeney leading the mediocre Bruins. He signed his extension earlier this week. Really confusing, angering, kind of depressing Bruins fans. So I'll start off with Mr. Bruin fan over here. How do you feel about Sweeney?
I'm going to start off with, if you go on any single social media for the Boston Bruins and just look at where it says it's extended, go read all the comments.
I don't want to.
See how the fans feel, right? Because we're not happy. This
They
dude,
probably look like that.
he won General Manager of the Year once, 2019, all right? You got Charlie Coyle and Marcus Johansson. Charlie Coyle was the best player for us goal-wise that playoffs. Great year. Every other year, Complete garbage. You get Case first-round picks. We're throwing around first-round picks for bottom 6 wingers. It's crazy. And all of a sudden, because the Florida Panthers make it to the Eastern Conference Finals for the 3rd year in a row with Marchand, and it turns into a first-round pick, you get an extension to your contract that was about to expire this year. That was the best move you ever did. Like, what? It's crazy. All Bruins fans don't like this guy. It's obvious. I mean, we can talk about the 2015 draft, and Cam Neely will just say, well, he was hired in May. It doesn't matter if he was hired in May or not. You barely hit with Jake DeBrusk out of the 3 picks. You had Matt Brazel, Kyle Connor, who was killing it in Winnipeg this playoffs. I could go on forever. This dude should not be here. Neither should Cam Neely. I've said this before. They were great hockey players. But, yeah, Wayne Gretzky beat him in the Stanley Cup. It's a great one. That beat him. But we don't need losers leading our team. We don't. And that's all these two were in the 90s. We're losers.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Well, 2 questions.
Yeah.
First question is he aware of, like, the hate that he gets from the fan base? Like, is he, like, oblivious to it, or he knows?
He has to. I mean, I posted on every single thing yesterday. If you're a season ticket holder, sell your tickets right now. And every single social media got at least 500 likes on that comment. You know, he's hated.
And then my second question, to play devil's advocate, if we did fire him, who would be like a suitable or like make the fan base kind of happy replacement? Like, who's out there that you would like look at and be like, wow, I would want him as my GM?
I mean, honestly, a bucket of bolts would probably be better. But, I mean, we just hired Zdeno Chara to help the players know what it's like to win and all this. There's plenty of different people that we could hire from different teams, too. Even assistant coaches could do a better job with scouting talent. This dude's not bad at trade deadlines, I'll give him that, but he cannot draft for the life of him. And now all of a sudden we just extended him 2 years, which is going to get him to the Brad Marchand first-round pick in 2027, unless it's top 10 protected, because that one is in 2028. It won't be if 2027 is. But that also means he's got the Toronto pick from Brandon Carlo that he can screw up. We have first-round picks finally for the first time in half a decade, and I'm worried this dude's going to screw them all up.
How about you, Zach?
I mean, I'm not very familiar with the situation.
It's okay. He's not either. He's not familiar with building a team.
But all I know is when he traded Marchand, I was not really happy because it's really the only one player I know on the Bruins, and he's been there since I was a kid. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of him.
It's funny if you watch the video when Don Sweeney walks into the room with his trade people and says Marchand to Florida. One of the guys just goes, "Oh boy." You know, he even knew what he just did to the franchise and the fans, how they're going to take that.
Could have been Pasternak. Apparently, they didn't like each other.
So what's the projection for, like, next season? What does it look like? Do we look like a lottery team that's, like, kind of locked into that, like, top 3 spot for, like, that next one? Or is – because I don't know how the draft works or anything like that. I know that'll probably be a
So the draft, we kind of got a little screwed with 2 teams jumping above us. And, I mean – this year, there were only, in my opinion, there's only 6 good players in the draft, like talented players.
And of course, we're 7.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But for that
we'll talk about the draft in a little bit too, and I'll go off there. But
do you think we're like a bottom?
We shouldn't be where we
team?
were again next year.
Okay.
I mean, we got Lindholm and Swayman. In my opinion, that was their one bad year of their contracts. Every player's entitled one. Hopefully we don't see more. I mean, Elias Lindholm, they bounced him up and down the lineup with both coaches for no reason. And towards the end of the season, if you watched all the games that didn't matter like I did, Elias Lindholm and Pasta were finally connecting. You know, so if we can have one good top line and then maybe get a good third line too to reinforce, we're not going to get 3 good lines like we have in the past for a little bit. But if we can lock down the first line with Lindholm because we paid him for a first line wing center. I mean, we have money too, so we could grab someone, but I don't think we're going to be anywhere near where we were in the standings next year.
Gotcha.
We might not even make the playoffs still, but wild card is best we'll make, in my opinion.
Well,
wild card 2, not wild card 1. We'll just make it in if we do.
Well, even as bad as this season was for the Boston Bruins, if I remember right, the Bruins are kind of in the playoff race until about
the
2
last
weeks
month,
left in
yeah.
the regular season.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that you could kind of take this rambling wreck to the month of April, still have a shot at the playoffs, I think proves that this team can at least be salvaged. Like you said, the start of this past season was a nightmare. Obviously, the whole Swayman situation, things
That
like
screwed
that.
everything up, just not showing up for training camp and all
I
that.
said that.
But let's kind of look a little bigger here. This was Cam Neely on the Sweeney extension saying, quote, Don has navigated a disappointing period for our club with conviction, purpose, and a clear vision toward the future of the Boston Bruins. He made difficult decisions around the trade deadline with the confidence they will pay dividends as we craft a path back to contention. He is continuing to follow that track with a robust and thorough search for our club's next head coach, while also preparing for the upcoming NHL draft and free agent signing period. This is where it gets interesting. I am confident in the plan he has followed these past few months and excited for what's to come for our team. The expectations in Boston always have been clear. It's about winning championships despite not winning since 2011. I add the last part.
I want to add something real quick since you just brought up the coach search. How many GMs do you know that have fired 3 Jack Adams winning coaches? That's the best coach of the year award.
George Steinbrenner fired a coach like 3 times, I think, in a press conference. That's all I got.
Well, I think Don Sweeney's the only one that has canned 3 Jack Adams winning coaches. And the 2 that are still coaching, even though Claude is an assistant somewhere, I'm pretty sure now, and he was even in the playoffs too. All 3 of them were in the playoffs, if that's the case with Claude, because we all know Bruce and Jim Montgomery made it. And Montgomery turned the Blues almost did what they did in 2019 because of Jim. The worst team in hockey to a great playoff team.
So let's look at this quote that I just read off. Is Cam Neely basically putting all his chips in on Don Sweeney? And could, in essence, the next 3 years be Sweeney and Neely's real hot seat time? Because to me, this quote says, I had to kind of fight for Sweeney to stay, so I'm putting my head on the line here. And if everything goes sideways in 2 seasons before that Florida pick comes up, then maybe both of them are gone.
I hope so. I hope they're both gone as fast as possible, man. I really do. It's just, I want to say so many bad things, but I got to watch what I say.
Can I bring back the therapy ball for you?
I might need that.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, speaking a little bit about the draft, one of my friends, shout out Colin, he was like, Don Sweeney, how do you like mess up the draft positioning? As a joke, but it's just like, it just kind of says everything you want about this guy. Like, fans don't like him. They don't like what he does. They don't like how he's fired people, who he's traded away, how he's handled situations, press conferences, all the above with him. So I'm getting up with hockey now, but from what I've learned about him, he doesn't seem like a great guy and just seems like an oblivious GM.
Wouldn't be surprised if they traded Pasternak next year.
Don't say that. Don't you put that on me, Ricky Bobby.
We're going to be down to 3 co-hosts, I think, if that happens. So the other big thing from the Boston Bruins is the press conference involving Jeremy Jacobs, Cam Neely, and let's get the quotes out here so we can really get everything going, and Don Sweeney. There were a lot of interesting aspects here, but at the start of it, it sounded like both Charlie Jacobs and Cam Neely were kind of just celebrating the fact that Don Sweeney was such a great general manager. He was the assistant general manager on Team Canada. He brought the team to the playoffs so many years in a row, and it seemed like it was affirming the belief that everyone had that for the Jacobs, it's as simple as just getting those extra 4 to 8 playoff game gates. That seemed like, to me, at the start of the press conference, what I took away. The fact that Sweeney at least got the team to be reputable and got the Jacobs family the 8 extra game gates.
If he didn't screw up in 2015, we would have won one more cup, 100%. And I mean, it's probably the quote there too, but for them, oh, why'd you raise ticket prices when you had the worst season ever? Oh, well, I'm just going to keep them there. It doesn't matter. That's because us idiot Boston Bruins fans still fill every seat in that place. And I don't know why we do when all this stuff happens. Like I said, I was on social media all day yesterday. Sell your season tickets right now. I had multiple people say, I just did.
So this is the quote you're talking about. Kevin Paul DuPont asked Charlie Jacobs if he would consider rescinding the 4% price increase for the season ticket holders on top of the 9% last year. So it sounds like the season ticket prices have gone up 13%, if I'm doing the math right. Jacobs said, quote, well, see, ticket pricing is a sensitive subject. I'm aware of that. Things cost more. The way our structure of U.S. economy is based, things cost more. I expect that you probably pay a higher electric bill than you did last year. I know that we pay more to open our building for security, for ushers, for concession workers, for parking attendants, everything. People deserve a raise and an increase. Likewise, we increase our ticket prices as our expenses go. I mentioned this before. Every dollar we bring in, 50% goes to the players. We share it. We're in a partnership together with them. So the ticket increase, whether it's 4 or 9%, it's all going back to the hockey club. So we made our decision. We raised our ticket prices. And no, we will not be rescinding that. So if I'm reading that right, and again, I'm not a Bruins fan, but it sounds like Charlie Jacobs just told Bruins fans to go stick it straight up where the sun don't shine.
He did.
And in that same context, he's basically saying, if you have an issue with the fact that we raised your season ticket prices 13%, well, talk to the hot dog guy behind the concession stand, because he wanted to raise, and Aaron Mark, that union, wanted us to go ahead and, pay their concession stand workers more, so we had to pay them more. Then, oh yeah, you're going to railroad the players union, which, I mean, the players union and the owners already have an icy history, but now you're kind of giving them more firewood here to go ahead and just start a hell of a blaze, basically saying that we didn't want to raise prices, but because of all these different unions and prices going up and real life things, we have to raise prices. The woe is me. To me, the biggest issue here is there's just straight up no representation from the ownership. Like, we see Charlie Jacobs at these BS press conferences at the end of the season.
That's the only time.
Where the hell is Ebenezer Scrooge, his father, that apparently lies somewhere in there? I don't know if it's somewhere in North Station or up in the promenade level, but I haven't seen Jeremy Jacobs. I don't even know if he exists.
You don't see him. It's crazy. And I mean, how are you going to say, oh, we need to raise all our bills when your beers in one of the most alcoholic sports fan stadiums are $19 a pop? You just added condos and everything else on top of the building, and you act like you're not making hand over fist. It's crazy.
Plus
it
the
really
Celtics.
is. Plus the Celtics. You're right, but I'm just saying, Boston Bruins fans, big drinkers. Big drinkers. Who would have thought? I'm just saying, $18 a beer.
That's craziness.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's craziness.
And then the people that work there have the audacity to flip the screen over.
Oh.
They just twisted a thing off because they don't want you flicking it. The only reason why you twisted the thing on is so people don't flick the things onto the ice. And you think you deserve $4 extra for doing that? It's crazy.
I mean,
It is.
Here's the problem too. They're not making a lot of money either.
No,
they're
they're
making
not.
very little.
Oh,
I've done work at Gillette Stadium.
I did that
behind
too
the
way back
concession.
in the day. Oh yeah.
They make
and then they kick
nothing.
you out in the second half.
Exactly. They make nothing. So
no, it's crazy.
it's all
It
these
is.
overinflated prices, and then you don't have people paying tips, and then it's not what you want. So not even these concession workers are getting paid enough.
I would pay more if they would bring back the cup of cookies they used to have. Those things were awesome.
Cup of
nice
cookies?
chewy chocolate chip cookies in a big cup. See, these are ways you get the fan base back.
that's
Yeah, maybe not chicken tenders that have been sitting for 6 months cooked.
Those aren't even tenders anymore.
Yeah,
at that
they're
point.
not. I don't know what the hell it is. You take a bite, you want to puke.
You can get that at the Arches down the street. Coming up, we have On the Sidelines Overtime. We'll talk about the NBA draft potentially being rigged. And also the conversation continues about the Boston Celtics and what they could look like coming up in the 25-26 season and going forward. Plus, I know you're going to love this, we get to bring back the On the Sidelines Spelling Bee.
Wicked smart. Got him to laugh. You see that, folks?
I'm out of here.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Good kisses. Good kisses. You heard how loud
I heard. It wasn't you. It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
On the sidelines, overtime coming at you. John Luck, Brad McKinnon, got Zach Sylvia on the end, and Bridgewater State University's newest graduate, Jonathan Rodriguez, all the way over there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you were at Gillette Stadium, and I believe you had a special visit from a special speaker, if I remember right. Rob Hale was at your graduation?
Yes, Mr. Hale was there.
Yeah.
Gave us a good story, a good sports story, which I enjoyed, and then sat down, and all the student body was like very disappointed because they thought we were getting something. And then I would say right before diplomas, he decided to push President Clark and said, "Wait 1 minute," and decided to tell us that he was giving us $1,000. But realistically, it's $500 for us, and he wanted us to donate to a good cause, good person, good something. The other $500. So you got a gift envelope, and then you got a for yourself envelope as well. So it was a cool experience being in Gillette, getting that $1,000, and just kind of graduating there. That was a full circle moment for me. So
now the hard part's over. You just get to go on to real life now.
Yeah, definitely a weird. I thought I had school on Monday. Like it just felt it felt weird to kind of like not have anything going on for like now.
Yeah.
No internship, no like anything else going on. So I was just like, oh, this is cool. I don't start work for another week, so I have that. So.
Little me time.
Yeah, little me time.
I gotta come back up here next year.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
finishing college. And let's talk a little bit about sports, because the Dallas Mavericks, in some weird twist of fate, traded away their franchise and Luka Doncic, were awful for about 3 months, and somehow, some way, with a 1.8% chance, ended up winning the number 1 selection in the 2025 NBA draft. They're expected, if Nico Harrison doesn't do something stupid, to take Cooper Flagg with the number 1 overall selection from Duke University. A lot of people, though, rehashing the old arguments that the NBA draft is indeed rigged. This comes off of the Atlanta Hawks last year having a 3% chance. They ended up winning. But I know you have your issues with different drafts, including the NHL draft. But
I had issues here
we
too.
We can combine the two.
Talk about NBA first.
No,
with
we can combine the
NBA.
two and talk about the fact that the draft lottery is always under this type of scrutiny, and the awful teams that ended up tanking get picks 4, 5, and 6. Meanwhile, a team that kind of goes sideways kind of gets a little, help from the league.
Thanks for helping the Lakers, our almost biggest franchise that generates money.
So NBA, NHL draft, are they rigged? What's your issues with it?
My issues are how it seems like they are, just because of how it's in your face. You were just saying, Luka. The NBA allows that trade to go through, which silly, whatever. Then in hockey, you have the Islanders, who are the 10th pick, 3.5% chance to win it, all right? And in hockey, you can only move up 10 spots. So they're in the perfect spot to somehow win it. And they were supposed to have an all-star game canceled at their stadium. And then you have Utah, who was the team that won the second pick, but they were in 14th, so they could only move to 4th. And what did Utah just do? They just saved a dying franchise. And when it came to the second pick, if you paid attention, and this pissed me off bad because I did pay attention. The second, what's his name? Bettman says stop the clock stopped, whatever. The number 7 ball's in the slot. If that got sucked up, the Bruins would have had the second pick. But nope, they waited for that ball to bounce out. Another one went in, and what do you know? Utah's ball's in there.
Sweeney screamed out balls, and the rest was history. How about you guys?
Yeah, I've heard of little rumblings. There's always rumors about this kind of thing occurring, and then you hear that because Mark Cuban's not their majority owner anymore. So you've heard that their new majority owners kind of want to be in Vegas and things of that nature. I've heard those rumblings. So I've also just seen the rumblings about, okay, let's send the superstar to LA, and then here's your new thank you with the draft pick and things of that nature. I definitely think this needs to be changed. This screams, without anybody having real cold hard evidence of it, like this screams like it's kind of rigged. And then it just kind of gives a bad look to like the teams that are actually doing poorly that then get, I'm not saying they should be rewarded, but bringing a superstar to Charlotte, fan base and a team that probably hasn't sniffed the playoffs or even like a remotely good team in years, like some kind of good players, just kind of like you're rewarding the same franchises. And maybe, yeah, people want to see Dallas and maybe people want to see the Lakers, but like I think there should be some kind of like parity like there is with the championships. Like there's been 7 different champions throughout the past 7 years of the NBA right now. Like there should be some parity. Like I think the last superstar besides Melo and Brandon Miller in Charlotte that I know is like Kemba Walker. And it might be like developing talent and things of that nature, but they just get no good players in there. So it's just
Brandon Miller could be interesting. I will say that.
Yeah,
for
yeah, and I agree with that. But it's like then you have Melo there, and he is kind of just not been what he needed to be. So it's kind of like Brandon Miller there, and that's kind of seems like all you have. You might have Bridges there as well, but it's still just you guys haven't sniffed the playoffs, not even like a play-in, the play-in, the playoffs, anything in such a long time. And that goes to the other like bottom teams like Utah. Like, not saying they tanked or anything on purpose, but they got rid of like their franchise players in like Gobert and Mitchell, and they're trying to like rebuild and everything like that. And you think like, okay, we had a bad year, we'll probably get like a top 3 pick, and you see them and they don't have a top 3 pick. You got the Sixers and you got Dallas, who was just in the play-in, so that just makes no sense at all.
Seriously, that I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I did want to bring up. The fact that they made it to the play-ins. You know, how the hell are they getting the first round draft pick?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It shouldn't be that way. That's like the Chiefs getting bounced in the first round and then them having like a top 2 or 3 pick.
Yeah.
It doesn't make. And I know. I wish there was like some kind of thing where they could do, because like the NFL kind of does it in a way of like you don't really tank in the NFL, but you could still regroup your team with the assets of the draft, like how it is.
But in the NFL, it's easier to kind of take away from the tanking because you only have 16 games. With the NBA, I mean, the bottom can really fall out, and you're still going to end up basically coming back here.
Yeah.
How about you, Zach?
I mean, this definitely was a little sketchy. I was watching it, and I'm sitting there, and in the last 2 teams, it's San Antonio and Dallas. I'm like, okay. I saw the percentages before. It's like 1-9. Like there's no shot, and then San Antonio gets the 2nd pick, and it's like, okay then. But I mean, we've seen like evidence of this before. We talked about this earlier about the quote with Shaq and David Stern. David Stern asked him, "Do you want to play somewhere hot or cold?" Shaq said, "Hot." Where did he get drafted? Orlando. And never mind the Patrick Ewing thing, where they possibly put a card in the freezer to tell that it was the New York Knicks. So, I mean, there's definitely been history of possibly seeing the draft rigged in, I don't know how many years.
So I could kind of understand what the whole rigging aspect comes into this, because you think about some of the awful teams in the NBA year after year after year. You mentioned Utah. You also have the Washington Wizards. So you continuously are awful year after year after year. To me, I think karma starts to come into play a little bit. I mean, if you're starting to suck so bad that Jordan Poole is your outstanding player, then maybe basketball karma is coming back a little bit. But let's go ahead and say this is rigged. Here's your point. Utah, not a really good TV market. Washington, D.C., not a top TV market, not your LA, Boston, New York. Dallas is a top TV market. So I can understand where people are saying this is rigged, but this has been a conversation for a long, long time. There's been a number of teams that have been, sitting there with the top 3 odds, and they end up getting the number 1 pick. This is kind of what happens with a lottery. Sometimes you end up being at the bottom of the barrel, your ball shoots up, and you're the number 1 selection. Other times you have more odds, and you end up winning. That's unfortunately what a lottery is. Now, David Stern does have a sketchy past. I won't argue that. But to me, Adam Silver, he does everything right in terms of the lottery. Because after the lottery, the video came out showing how everything was processed. The balls getting dropped into the tumbler, the numbers coming out. and
they
so
should
on and
show
so
that
forth.
beforehand, though. 'Cause this was the first year the NHL actually showed the balls getting picked, and that alone should be able to build trust a little bit more. I mean, they can say they showed, but how many times do you think they filmed the thing to make sure it was showing Dallas's balls coming out? You know.
So there are reporters in there. Like I know Chris Mannix, because I follow him on Twitter.
You know what big money in an NDA is, though?
Yeah, but I mean, if he has a chance, he'll hit the NBA if he needs to. I will give him that much. And there's reporters and bloggers and a lot of people watching, including the owners. I mean, what are the owners going to do? Come out and say, extra ball in there for Dallas, get that out. Like, are they going to rat out other owners? I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, but I've also seen where it could be there's ways to rig that machine. You know what I mean? Like there's ways to rig the machine if that is happening. I think the biggest thing is people, and why people are blown up about this, is like the coincidences of the year. Like
that's 100% where I'm coming from. It's way too coincidental.
You trade Luka, and then you're a play-in team, and then Kyrie gets hurt, and then you just get Anthony Davis, and now you essentially have your Luka replacement. So it essentially became like getting AD and sending out Luka, and you also got Cooper Flag in that. Like that's how it's going to come off. Like Cooper Flag and AD went to Dallas.
So let's go back to the Boston Celtics here in overtime, and we're going to bring this up earlier, but time ran out. Brad Stevens has quite the offseason coming up because there's going to be a lot of players that are going to be moving based on what they're going to make on the salary cap. So just kind of taking a look here at some of the top players. Jaylen Brown making $53.1 million. Drew Holiday, $32.4. Kristaps Porzingis, $30.7. Derek White, $28.1. Sam Hauser, $10 million. And the list goes on and on. So realistically, for the Boston Celtics to avoid the second apron, they're going to have to probably cut 3 to 4 names I just mentioned off this list to get under that second apron. We talked about it on the last episode. If you're at the second apron, your franchise is screwed for a long time financially. But out of those names I mentioned, Zach, who do you start off with in terms of shedding off the payroll? Because there's going to be tough decisions made. I think there's really no way of looking at it.
If I had to pick one name out of that, I hate to say this too because I love him as a player, I think it's Drew Holiday. It's definitely a guy who's up there in age. He's going to be 35 next year. Yeah. He's making, what did you say, 32 million a year. I mean, it's not, you hate to see such like a guy who's a leader, who brings a defensive presence, who makes your defense a lot better. But I think it's just because of the second apron, I think, because he's one of the older players there, I think he's gone.
Yeah, I would agree with the Drew Holiday, especially with like Peyton Pritchard doing what he did this year. You can move him to maybe like a starting role, and it's unfortunate because I like Drew. I think he's a great leader. I think his wife and him are like great people in what they do, and he's kind of brought that maturity and leadership to every team that he's been a part of. The Sixers, Milwaukee, New Orleans, obviously here. There's a very, very big championship pedigree with him. So I would say definitely him. It's between him and KP, but I would put him as like the 1A for sure.
So I'm going to be a little bit different, and I am going to say Porzingis first over Drew Holiday. I am. They're both great players, but Porzingis, I know he got sick and all this stuff this year, but he's made out of glass. He is. Every time you see him jump up for a rebound and you watch his legs land, you're like, did his leg just snap? You know?
Yep.
And, I mean, I love both of them. They're great players. They are. And, I mean, I even saw a silly rumor that I know is nowhere near true, but someone even tried saying, get rid of Drew Holiday and KP and bring Giannis. Yeah. You know, I don't see that ever happening, but that was just, I think. Yeah. But that was that was the craziest rumor I've seen about what do the Celtics do.
You would have to trade one of the Jaylen Brown or Tatum to do that, I think.
Brown would be gone if that was the case.
Yeah.
So to me, I think I agree with you. You unfortunately have to get rid of Kristaps Porzingis. He's just not reliable in terms of being on the court. And I understand you can't help a viral infection and things like that. But it's just difficult because you had the first 25, 30 games of this season. He wasn't able to play because of what happened in the finals. And I understand he gave his body to the Celtics. But unfortunately, this is a very tough business. There's tough decisions to be made. The Celtics had to trade away Marcus Smart and Robert Williams. They didn't want to do that.
No. But it paid off.
Now, there could be some alternate universe maybe where the Celtics can make a play at Robert Williams coming back. But if you can make a depth in terms of your center of an Al Horford, Neemias Queta, and a Luke Cornett, that's a reputable spot to fill what Kristaps Porzingis gave you. And as you mentioned, I think Peyton Pritchard would be a great replacement for Drew Holiday. Baylor Shireman is starting to come up, Drew Peterson as well. So there are pieces that can fill the voids that are going to be left here, but you have to get below that second apron, because if not, you're screwed if you're the Celtics.
Even if Jeff Bezos owns the team, you're screwed.
Jeff Bezos, Rob Hale, us, you're screwed if you're at the second apron. We will take a quick break here, and when we come back, it's time to break out the letters. It's that time of the year. We are going to spell some of the top names in pro sports coming up after the break.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary.
Bye, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back, and set to wrap things up. And we had a radio show a long time ago in Taunton, and one of the things we did was have a spelling bee. And we had Brad call in, threatened to do his own type of game at me, never followed through. So, I went ahead and made the On the Sidelines Spelling Bee 2.0. So I have a list of names from the NBA and NHL playoffs. And what we're going to do, we're going to go around, we're going to spell and see who knows who around here.
All right, well, after I get mine, you pass me the papers, and I get to ask you, all right?
Yep, I will give you the papers I typed out the names on and tell you what I typed. All right.
He's going to study them over real quick.
Yeah. All right, so out of the kindness of my heart, I'm going to let you go first.
All right, I'm looking this way just so I don't see the paper.
Your player is Kristaps Porzingis. So I'll just start off by saying you're spelling the last name. Okay. So spell Porzingis.
P-O-R-Z-I-N-G-A-S.
P-O-R-Z-I-N-G-I-S.
All right, I was wrong, but somewhat close.
All right, we will go now to Jonathan. We're going to spell my buddy's name here. Missoula.
Missoula. M-U-Z-E-L-L-A.
All right, so this isn't going to be a point for you, but you want to take a shot?
Is it E-L-A?
M-A-Z-Z-U-L-L-A. All right, Zach, you're up. Halliburton for Tyrese Halliburton from the Indiana Pacers.
H-A-L-I-B-U-R-T-O-N.
There we go. We got a 1-0 game here. All right.
Hold on.
All right. Jonathan Hartenstein.
Thank you for going that way.
H-A-R-T-E-N-S-T-E-I-N. Hartenstein.
That's 1-1-0.
Wow, good job.
All right, so I was kind of given
Listen,
a
there
hard.
was Stein at the end. Everyone knows how to spell Stein, all right?
I was given a hard time because I didn't bring up hockey names during the last spelling bee. So
Bobrovsky.
your turn there. Yep, your turn. Hotshot. Verhage.
Verhage. V-E-R-G-H-A-G-E.
V-E-R-H-A-E-G-H-E.
I missed one letter.
Yeah,
all right.
you did. So it's still the wrong answer.
Yep, I know.
All right.
But did you notice how fast I went off the head because it's a hockey player?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, go easy. Go easy, Tiger.
All right. Next up here, Gilgeous Alexander for Jonathan.
Oh, Jesus.
Probably the MVP.
This is the first time
So I'm
I've
going to do
got
Alexander first. A-L-E-X-A-N-D-E-R, and then Gildress. G-I-L-G-E-R-I-O-S.
Oh, so close. G-I-L-G-E-O-U-S dash A-L-E-X-A-N-D.
What nationality is that?
I think
Canadian.
He's Canadian?
He's Canadian.
Oh,
Can you spell Shea?
Shay? What, like
It doesn't,
John Shea?
it doesn't count for the game, but
S-H-E-A?
S-H-A-I.
A-I?
Yeah, that's how he spells his name. He's the MVP of the NBA. I can't help it.
I don't watch the NBA that much.
You should.
Playoffs.
All right. Last NBA name for you, Zach. Anunoby.
You did pick some good ones.
A-N-N-O-U-B-Y.
A-N-U-N-O-B-Y.
It's on the money.
All right. We're going to go to Brad here. Get him back in the game. A player you wanted at the trade deadline, I think.
Oh, Jesus.
Do you remember who that was?
D-R-A-S-T-I-L?
It's like how he went right for it. Screw it. D-R-A-I-S-A-I-T-O.
All right, the I-A. All right.
That's Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
All right. Jonathan.
That was a crazy dream of mine.
Yeah.
Still a
didn't
dream.
work out.
Hey, if they lose this year, we might have to trade for a $14-16 million contract that he signed for.
You can ask your buddy Don. Next up, Nugent Hopkins for Jonathan.
Ooh. If he spells it wrong, let me get
Wait,
this
Hopkins?
one. Nugent Hopkins.
Oh, so okay.
Hockey.
It's
You keep
Ryan
giving-
Nugent Hopkins.
You keep giving me the.
Those
Nugent
hyphenated
Hopkins,
names.
Yeah. Nugent. N-U-G-E-N-T. Tack. Hopkins, you said?
Yep.
H-O-P-K-I-N-S.
That's why he gets a diploma from BSC.
Well, I would have got that one.
You tried Draisaitl, didn't work out. All right, Zach, your last word, or last name, I should say, to spell is Bork.
Bork. That's probably not as simple as it sounds.
It's not.
Not a name you want to screw up in Boston.
Oh, Jesus.
I might even screw it up if
I'm
you
on
do.
the spot. Is it B-O-R-K-E? I'm way off, aren't I?
B-O-U-R-Q-U-E.
There you go.
Yeah, all right.
All right, and your final name to spell, Kachuk.
T-K-A-U. Did I screw up already? Hold on.
When the
no,
boring
this,
guy, the
this is a
spelling,
tough one.
What, you have to write it out?
No, T-H-A. I should friggin' know this, man.
There's a couch over here. Should I take it down?
Get some Jeopardy
I
music
win
going.
if you get it wrong.
I know. You're gonna win no matter what. I'm a horrible speller, but this is one I should know. T-H-A-U-C-H-E-K. Oh.
T-K.
Oh, I was saying H.
A.
Oh my God.
C-H-U-K. And this went exactly how I thought it was going to
decent
go.
at the end, the second
You did.
half of his name. H over K. Whoops.
Congratulations to
Jonathan
the PSU
winning again. Yep, yep.
There's no trophy here.
There's no god reefs this time though. Hey, remember how many balls are on this one? Were they silver or pink?
Wait for the 4th of July, buddy. We're going to get the pyrotechnics out. So congrats to Jonathan for winning, and we thank you for watching this episode of On the Sidelines. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Oh, I really said H.